So word has it that you can buy a pile of century-old stones for $6,000 and then flip it to the next foreigner. Not the lot, just the stones. I don't know where that rumor got started, do you?
If a foreigner wants to go somewhere, buy a dilapidated house, you're not really buying a house. You're being donated a house, okay? But there's a catch. The catch is coming up. If a foreigner wants to come in and rehabilitate a house and want a vacation home in Italy, great, go for it. We're not telling people not to do this. Good morning and welcome to Retire Earlier and or Better at Home or Abroad, whatever suits you best. I run into these videos that catch my eye, and this subject of the €1 house in Italy has been out already for quite some time, but it's been kind of festering in the back of my mind, and I thought I'd just look into it and see what are people saying about this. And so why not? Why not buy a €1 home? Well, the first thing is, we've got some videos here. One of them is homes in Sicily, Italy, sold for €1 with a catch. And, let's see if they give us the whole scoop and what the catch is. The first thing is that they start talking about how expensive homes are in America. Well, okay, yes, expensive homes everywhere. Expensive homes in North Europe, expensive homes in America, expensive homes in a lot of places. If you go to the right neighborhoods, you can find all kind of expensive stuff. But there's plenty of inexpensive housing in the States. I mean, this makes it sound like it's some kind of a solution to expensive housing in the States, which clearly there are millions of solutions. This is not it's not like, okay, we cannot afford housing here where we live, let's go to Italy and buy a Euro house. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, as we're going to see. Okay, so €1 sounds like a bargain, right? It's an excellent bargain. Now, there's a couple of different things to think about here. One is, well, what kind of a house am I going to get for €1? And the other is, it's in a particular country. It's in Italy, and if people decide they want a house in Italy, that's great. But there are things to consider, like, for example, ever since the forming of Italy as a country, a political entity, Italians have been abandoning Italy ever since the inception of Italy. That's since the 1860s, which is 160 years. There have been waves of exoduses, in the 1920s and then in the 60s. And so in the video we're told, and the question is asked, why are Italians abandoning these houses? The response we're given is that, they don't want to pay the taxes on the house. Well, when you put things into historical perspective, you actually see that there's been an exodus going on from Italy for decades and decades. Over 1 million Italians left Italy in the 20s. And, there are a few that do come back, but the end result is that there is a net, migration out of Italy. It's a negative number. And analysts expect that number to remain negative for the foreseeable, short future. I just want to put that in perspective based on what we are told in the video, that just for the simple matter of not paying a few $100s in taxes is why the house is getting abandoned, which is a preposterous idea. Who abandons a house for $300? I mean, maybe there are people that, maybe were hit by some unfortunate events and have no family, but there's just too many of these houses. There's hundreds of them. So there's hundreds and hundreds of them, which tells us that, because normally when you look at the behavior of foreigners when they leave their country, for example, in Mexico or Ecuador, you have people that go to the US to work and then they send back money. There's families that are still there. Houses are never abandoned in these cases. There are still family members. There's a remittance going on where US money is being sent back to the family. So this doesn't seem to be present in this scenario, which tells us that whole families have abandoned. And I know from experience that just even in the 60s and 70s, I know of whole families, like, for example, almost all of my uncles and all of our family went to the States. And this is a mass exodus, which is a whole lot different than what we're being told in the video, that Italians don't want to pay the property tax, and that's why it was abandoned. You know, the other side of the story, you know, if a foreigner wants to come in and rehabilitate a house and want a vacation home in Italy, great, go for it. We're not telling people not to do this, you know, to be clear. You know, we just like to look at some of this information on the internet and you know, kind of dig through the hubbub, the hype, you know. And does that mean there isn't a morsel for somebody? No, it doesn't. You know, I mean, that's what you want to do. Everything's relative, right? I mean, if someone's net worth is in the multiple of millions, what's a couple, $200,000-$300,000 on a house? But there's even more to it than that. You know, you've got one guy that remodeled one house. He is a returning Italian. It did cost him $220,000. I don't remember the size of it, but you know, you're looking at $200,000-$300,000, and on a square footage basis, it's not a bad price, but it's a big, huge job. Have you ever remodeled a house before? You know, if you're a foreigner, don't speak Italian, what have you, you've got those challenges, you know. I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying that there's more to it than just buying a €1 house. When we dig a little deeper is, why would even somebody sell a house for €1? Why not just donate? From a legal standpoint, to make the contract valid in law, you have to have consideration. In other words, something of value has to exchange hands by both parties. And so the other party pays $1 in order to make this contract legal. What's the contract? Well, the contract is you have to do this within 3 years. And I mean, I've remodeled houses, and anybody that has remodeled houses, and this is not just a TLC remodel, this is a total rebuild from the ground up. So in one instance, the potential buyers are advised to not walk across the floor because, you know, it might collapse. This is very dangerous. This is not the typical do-it-yourself project, you know, TLC, that kind of thing. You've got to be sure that you've got professionals going in there that know what they're doing and that take the risk away from you. You know, that costs money. So, and one of the guys in the videos did all the work himself. So clearly there's a level of experience there for that person, and that's the guy that gets highlighted. Then there's some other families from California. Why is it always people from some of the most expensive places in the world that are highlighted in these, you know, in these internet promotions? You know, what is there something to that? Of course there is. Not picking on California. It could be anywhere. It could be Moscow, Russia, New York, Dubai. You take your pick. California, San Francisco. Doesn't really matter. You know, you're looking at places that are at the top of the heap of the cost of housing. And so you could say that maybe 80 or 90% of the rest of the world is cheaper than those places. I mean, clearly there's lots of cheap real estate in the US and Europe and even Italy. I mean, for what the amount of money that these people are putting into these houses to rebuild them, they could easily buy brand new houses. But you could also buy remodeled houses for a lot less than what these people are put into these houses. So again, I'm not telling people what to do, and I'm not telling you not to do it. You know, to each his own. If this is something that you want to do, great. You know, we're all for it. And don't forget, if you like the video, to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Oh, and there is one more thing. That €1 thing to cement the contract means that you do have an obligation to finish the rebuilding of the whole house from the ground up within a specified time. That is a contractual obligation, which I'm sure has remedies if you don't do it. Know what you're getting into, and so you're looking at legal fees to understand exactly what you're getting into. And it's a precarious, slippery slope. I mean, anytime there's a time limit on something that you really don't have complete control over, I mean, unless you're doing all of the work yourself, which is a huge amount of work. You know, if you're hiring contractors, you've got delays, you've got, you know, all kind of issues like that, which is pretty standard within the construction industry. Supplies run out, things are, you know, not in stock, all kinds of things. And also the idea that you're a foreigner and things are not going to necessarily go as smoothly as what they put out in the video for this one person that clearly has a ton of experience in remodeling houses, since he's done all of the work himself from the ground up, a total rebuild. And so if you're not one of these guys, you know, you will definitely have a lot more delays and challenges. And with having this time performance stipulation in the background on this obligation in the contract, that's just another thing to cause a situation, potential situation, where, you know, you're just pulling your hair out when things don't go according to plan, which is pretty standard and pretty normal within the construction and building industry. But the other thing is that I have actually talked to people that have done huge remodels of dilapidated homes for the purposes of ending up with a really nice, let's just call it unique housing, historical type of housing, which they do have those in a lot of parts of the US, especially in the South. There's a lot of plantation homes and that kind of thing. And so I've talked to people like this that have done remodels, and the bottom line of what they told me was that for the amount of money that it cost them, yes, they could have just gone out and bought a brand new one, you know. So there isn't anything to be gained cost-wise. And on top of that, a lot of these villages, the villages have a requirement to be less than 10,000 people. A lot of them are only around 5,000 people or less. The issues of living in a small village are many. It's not just infrastructure and just things to do. I mean, you know, good ice cream, good wine, sure, great. If you want to do that, great. But I mean, I can just rent an Airbnb for a couple of months a year and do that. I don't have to, you know, but each his own, depending on your net worth. If it's just a small portion of your net worth, it may actually make financial sense. And if that's something you want to do, great, go for it. But again, the village issue is one that if you're looking at potential resale, a lot of these villages aren't really close to like an airport, you know, a couple hours away or more. There's not a whole lot going on in the villages. It may not really meet your needs for living abroad on a longer term basis. I mean, every place that's new has a great vibe to it when we first get there, but eventually will it keep your interest? And the idea of a resale is a low probability in a lot of these places. You know, you are pretty much saying that you're going to be making a long-term commitment and laying down a whole lot of cash for a long period of time. And so I thought you might like to know the full skinny on these kinds of videos. You know, they're good entertainment for sure. Is the average American that sells his house in the States and wants to go somewhere abroad and spend a little less money for a house, is that a good idea? Well, you be the judge of that. So things aren't all roses, but again, if you're just the right person for this, this might be something that you might want to do. But again, remember to consider 100% of the complete picture and understand that foreigners, they do get foreigner priced regardless of what anybody tells you. I speak Italian and I get it. I still get it all the time. But, you know, I don't put up with it. Does it cause delays? Absolutely it causes delays. You know, because I'm committed to not being overcharged as a foreigner. It's just not something that I'm interested in. And I imagine that if you don't hold those views and are careless about these kinds of things, The so-called lower cost of living that they propose in the video is not going to stick around for you. It's not going to be something that's going to really materialize for you. Anyway, you know that. If you were subscribed to our videos and have been watching our videos, you would know that. Due diligence is one of the major issues that most expats don't do, because they buy into all the everything, just the grass is greener and the rose-colored glasses syndrome. Be smart, do your due diligence, or hire somebody to do it for you, or learn. If you want to learn how to go abroad like a pro, make your dreams come true, and do it right, check out the links below. And thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.